Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do.
My name's Danielle Mead, and I live in the greater Palm Springs area in Southern California, Cathedral City to be specific. We're one town over from Palm Springs. And I build websites for e-commerce clients and also help e-commerce clients grow and optimize their stores through consulting, optimization packages, growth strategy, all that sort of fun stuff.
So I'm just curious about your background. How did you kind of get into this space in the first place?
Yeah, it's funny. It's a really kind of roundabout story. So I will try to make it a short version. I was a musician growing up. I loved singing, wanted to work in the music industry, went to college for music. And when I got out of college and moved to Los Angeles, where I thought I was going to work in the music industry, it was the year that Napster had become really kind of its peak and it had decimated the entire music industry. So all the record companies were laying people off. There were thousands of people with more experience than me who were looking for work. So my boyfriend at the time had an internship with a film producer. That film producer had a side business, which was an e-commerce company. And basically, it was pretty early on. What they were doing was running the official online stores for a bunch of big media properties. So Fox TV, MTV, Comedy Central. And they got me a part-time job there. I started there like answering phones, answering customer complaints by email. And then I worked my way up and ended up being kind of a senior store manager. I was managing the official store for MTV, Comedy Central. It was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot there. And then that company, like a lot of .coms, went kind of boom and then bust. And I just stayed in e-commerce from there. And I ended up doing a bunch of different things. That first job, I was doing a lot of merchandising. Then I moved to a company where I learned to do pay-per-click advertising at the very beginning, started doing email marketing, learned about SEO. So I kind of picked up all these things over time. And after working for 3 or 4 e-commerce companies, the one that I was at that time, I want to say maybe it was like 2006, maybe, they ended up getting acquired and relocating to another state. And I didn't want to move. So I thought, you know what? I have all this experience. I mean, I've kind of done all of it. Could I, help other e-commerce merchants do this, right? And get started. So I had some HTML background from college. I had a little bit of programming experience. And so I just started essentially helping startups, people who made their own products, some people who were still on like the old Yahoo platform who needed something a little bit more robust. And just through word of mouth, I found clients and I was really startup focused, which not many people were, and because I had more than just design experience, I could tell people like, hey, here's how to figure out how to calculate what you want to charge people shipping, or here's how to write a good product description, or here's how to take your photos. So I had like a pretty broad set of knowledge that I could really kind of advise people on because a lot of them were, they had retail experience maybe, or manufacturing experience, but they didn't know anything about selling on the internet. So it was actually a lot of fun for me because I got to work with all these different clients, people who were selling all sorts of stuff. And you feel like you're really a part of their business and their growth, especially for a startup to be able to take them from, hey, I'm selling, homemade soap at farmers markets to, hey, I have a website where I'm selling to people all over the country was really gratifying. And just especially coming from an online world, a lot of times you don't feel like you have like a physical product at the end of the day to show that you produce. Like when I was doing online marketing, people would ask me, so what do you do? And I'm like, oh, those ads you see on Google, like I make those happen. It's not like a very tangible thing that you can point to. But when you can say, hey, I helped this company go from like, farmers market to having their own website and be able to point to the website and say, hey, now they're doing business online, got all these customers. That was like really exciting to me to just be able to have that, kind of feeling of I produced this, I helped someone. And that's really kind of where, kind of how I've built my entire business over the years. And that's still a very big part of what I do now. So
that's awesome. And I guess back then, obviously e-commerce has changed a lot. In terms of like the e-commerce platforms that you were using back then, I guess to kind of what you're using now, is that changed at all? And what has that kind of?
Yeah, absolutely. So, back in the early days, a lot of stuff was custom built. There were very few what you'd call SaaS platforms, software as a service that you kind of subscribe to. too. So, I mean, I think Yahoo was maybe one of the only ones that you could essentially go sign up and then they provided you with the cart and some templates and, a way to manage your products. But all the e-com companies that I worked in-house at, they all had pretty much custom built platforms, which was, now is almost unnecessary because there's so many great platforms out there. And we were constantly running into technical problems. I mean, if something went down, there was always this mad dash. Where are the programmers? How do we get this fixed? So to not have to worry about that kind of stuff nowadays really makes a huge difference. I mean, it's so much easier for people to get started. They don't have to have that like an IT guy on staff who's gonna, fix the server went down and all those sort of things. So just that change has really democratized, I think, the ability for people to get online and, set up a business.
For sure. So I guess back then it was Yahoo. I guess nowadays, obviously, you have Shopify, you have BigCommerce, WooCommerce. There's so many different platforms. So what are you kind of working on now more so when merchants do come to you to build a site?
Yeah, so I'm mostly BigCommerce. I've worked with a few Shopify clients over the years. Generally, a lot of the clients I work with are a little bit bigger, maybe have a little bit more of a complex need, like they need a more complex feature set or something that's a little more complicated. A lot of times there are people that sell a lot of products, have a lot of categories, and BigCommerce just tends to lend itself a little bit better for that. I have a lot of B2B clients. People sell commercial industrial products, tractor engines and diesel particulate filters to truck drivers. And so it's a different kind of approach. Shopify is great. And I've had some clients move to Shopify and people move the other way. But I think, Shopify is great, like for building a brand, for really like establishing who you are as a lifestyle brand or things like that. Some of my clients, that's totally irrelevant. When you're selling tractor engines, people just want to get there. They want to check out really quickly. They're not looking at lifestyle photos. They don't need to see how they're going to be using it. They know how they're going to be using it. It's just kind of a different business, but I do work with merchants of pretty much all kinds and people sell just about everything. So, and that's one of the fun parts of my job is at least a couple times a year, someone comes to me and says, I have an e-commerce business selling X. And I'm like, who sells that online? I had no idea that was even a thing.
No, exactly.
Very
I mean,
fun.
that stuff shocks me all the time.
Yeah.
I was just at Sub Summit, like I live in Austin, I was up in Dallas, and it's like at the conference, and it's like some of the brands that you see, it kind of shocks me. I'm like, really, people subscribe, not just buy, but they get these products every month, and I'm like, that's fascinating.
Yeah. And I mean, I think especially on the B2B side, that is a really kind of growing business, big part of the industry, just because so many B2B companies have traditionally done all their ordering by fax, by phone, by email. And I think at some point they realize, this would all be a lot simpler if people could just go on our website and place an order online. And then there's, of course, always the kind of pulling their end customers along because they're so used to faxing and emailing and phone. But ultimately, it's a better experience for both sides. And so I think that's like a real growth market now. I'm seeing a lot of kind of traditional old-fashioned companies go, hey, you know what? This might be better if we moved online. So
sure. And you were saying that early on you were kind of doing ads on Google and things like that. So are you still doing that for your clients as well, or you're really just more focused on the actual website builds?
Yeah, not so much on the marketing side, mainly because I am a one-person shop and I can only do so much. So I do help people a lot with strategy. I will give people advice. I have a couple clients who I sit in on their calls with their search agency or their email marketing agency or their SEO companies, just because they do have that background. And sometimes they want someone to kind of not, I hate to say be a BS detector, but sometimes they don't know, right? Like what they're being told, they don't understand it. And so they like to have me on there so I can be like, yeah, that sounds right. That's what they're telling you is right. This all seems like they're doing a good job. But yeah, I mean, I do a little bit of email marketing for a couple clients, but generally I'm more focused on strategy, optimization, getting the site up and running. And a lot of people, they launch second stores, third stores, multi-storefront. They launch B2B from a retail business or retail from, so there's always like some expansion going on for a lot of my clients.
For sure. I think obviously nowadays it's, everything is changing with AI. So I'm curious in terms of like how and if that you're using it at all. And especially like when you're building sites, something that you're probably keeping in mind to make sure that the Google Gemini algorithm is picking it up. So what does that kind of look like from your perspective?
Yeah. I mean, so I've used AI quite a bit myself. Just, I try to write blog posts. I've been trying to do more YouTube videos. I find it's really great for brainstorming ideas, just being able to say, hey, give me 50 topics that I could, do a post on that people are searching for, or, and then helping me essentially like, because I can come up with a million ideas, but I don't know if those are ones that people want to see. So I found it really useful for that, for brainstorming ideas. BigCommerce actually rolled out, I think it was last year, an AI tool that will help people write product descriptions. And I know a lot of my clients have taken advantage of that because, I mean, ultimately, not everyone is like a great writer, and nor should they have to be, right? But you want your product descriptions to look professional. You want them to be kind of all have the same format so that not some are, 2 sentences and some are like 5 paragraphs. And also a lot of people are essentially getting their product descriptions from a manufacturer. So if they want to be able to take that description, optimize it for SEO, make sure it's not duplicate content, being able to run something like that through AI and say, hey, make this distinct enough, unique enough, make sure it's optimized for SEO. That's something that I know people are doing. And I know I have a lot of clients who use it for generating ideas for blog posts because, that is just, everyone knows, especially for e-commerce, blog posts are a great way to get content on your site because you can only put so much content in a product description or on a category page. You don't want to be stopping people from buying. So those blog posts can be really great ways to draw people in. I was just on a call with a client this morning. We were talking about two of his top 3 landing pages on his site are, one's a blog post and one's a product guide that's very similar to a blog post. Those things really can draw in traffic, direct link people to products, to categories. So I think AI can really help with that because a lot of merchants are both too busy and just kind of overwhelmed with knowing how to develop that kind of a strategy.
I guess I'm curious just from your perspective, how do you kind of bridge the gap with AI and trying to be more human? Because I think that there is I see oftentimes people are pushing more towards the authentic side of things and kind of less AI, so and I know sometimes with ChatGPT, you can tell if a post was written with it. So how do you kind of humanize it just to make sure that people don't feel like it's sort of fake, if that makes sense?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I usually recommend that even if you are going to have, I personally think it's great for generating an outline and then you fill in the actual content with your voice. So even though you're getting some assistance in the formatting, it's still really your voice. But even if you're going to have AI generate the post for you, then go in and rewrite it, add your own anecdotes, insert your own stories. There is still a way, I think, to make sure it's partially yours and as much yours as possible. But ultimately, at the end of the day, a lot of times I totally understand. A lot of my clients are sole proprietors or small teams. They don't have a big marketing department. So I feel like if they can take a blog post, make it theirs a little bit, even if it was originally AI generated, that's better than them just not having any content on their site at all. So I think it's a balance, like you said, and I think there are other ways they can also present their kind of authenticity on the site through photography, through banners, through product descriptions, so I think it is a fine line. And I think we're going to see over time, how much that shifts. Is there a major pushback to AI written content? I think we're seeing a little bit of it, but I don't know that it's gone all the way yet. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, I think.
For sure. And I guess besides AI, which is obviously a hot topic, an interesting conversation, what are some of the other trends that you're seeing now in the market when it comes to?
Yeah, I think one of them would be multi-storefront. So I have a lot of clients who have a big catalog. It's probably pretty diverse and maybe serves a kind of a wide market. And they're realizing that both from an SEO perspective and just to be able to target maybe different types of buyers for the same products, that they can spin up another site, a second site, a third site, run it all off the same back end. So it's easy to manage. All their orders are in the same place, products are in the same place, but they can uniquely brand those sites by just putting a niche of their products and maybe serving a completely different demographic, that are people who buy those same products, but maybe aren't attracted to, I have a client who sells, well, I probably shouldn't say that. Pause there. But yeah, I think, a lot of products can serve different markets and just have different branding. You can talk about different ways to use those items. That's a big trend that I'm seeing just because it is a super easy and quick way to also kind of dominate search results. If you have 3 stores all selling those products, you're more likely to be dominating that first page or that second page in Google. And then, like I said, the B2B, B2C thing is really fascinating to me because I have a lot of clients who have always traditionally been retail, and they're realizing that they're looking at their customer databases and going, I have a pretty decent segment of people who are businesses. Can I establish a B2B purchasing program where I'm giving people a little bit of a discount, I'm offering bulk sales, and then they'll expand off of that. And that becomes lose, sometimes 50% of their business over the years. And then vice versa, manufacturers in conjunction with that multi-storefront are saying, hey, can we sell direct to retail under a different brand? We're not cannibalizing or directly competing with our retail customers and be able to sell B2C. So I think people are looking at these kind of alternate ways to grow their business that aren't so reliant on advertising, because advertising has just gotten extremely expensive. Google CPC costs are way up across the board. And a lot of my clients are just like, I can't afford to do that. But what I can afford to do is target a different market, optimize it for SEO, go after TikTok, shopping, Meta, Instagram. And I think that's where kind of people are looking for these alternate growth strategies that are just more profitable and easier to manage long term.
For sure. And then when it comes to B2B, right? Because obviously it's a whole different ballgame, as you were saying, like different pricing. So the way that it's structured is somebody has to log in, they have like a special login, and from there they get, different pricing based on volume. I mean, that's the way how it's set up.
Yeah. And some people have, multiple tiers of customer bases where some people are getting 10% off, some are getting 25, some are getting 50. Some offer specific products to specific customer types. So you may have like a government, group of customers who need specific products that maybe can't be sold to a regular commercial B2B customer. So there's a lot of intricacies really, but ultimately, once you get someone on the site and they log in, everything's tailored to them. The pricing, they can pay by purchase order, net 30 terms. So you can really kind of customize the purchase experience for that end customer.
For sure. And then I guess if you could go back in time, what would you say is the one biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew?
I wish I knew. I think I waited too long to sort of establish good processes and procedures for myself for running a business. I kind of learned those things as I went along, but I just kept thinking, these kind of slapdash tools that I have, tracking everything in Excel spreadsheets and, works. But once I got to the point where I really had built out a really good tech stack for myself, right? A CRM, an email platform, invoicing system that everything was all connected, it's made my life so much easier. And I think I probably could have grown quicker and really honestly given my clients better service, because I can't tell you how many times over the years people would say, do you have any other clients in my industry or selling something similar to me, or someone selling something that maybe I could cross promote with, right? I could have a partnership with. And I'd be like, I know I do, but I'd have to search through my emails right now with the CRM. I know I have everyone categorized by industry, by the products they sell. I can easily look people up. So, I can offer things to my clients that I couldn't before. And it makes it much easier for me to manage everything. So I think that would have been my big tip to myself. Invest in that setup earlier on instead of waiting until it was like really, really necessary.
That's good advice. If somebody watching this wanted to work with you, do you mind sharing your website or social media, I guess, best ways to get in contact?
Yeah, absolutely. So my website's probably the best place to go. It's at ducksoup.ecommerce.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I am on Facebook, although I don't post a lot on my business page on Facebook, but I'm in the big commerce community groups there. So if you're in those groups, I'm also on Reddit. I'm pretty active on Reddit in a variety of e-com and big commerce subreddits there. So those are probably the best places to contact me. And I'm also very, very active in the big commerce support community as well. So
Danielle, thanks so much for your time today.
thanks for having me. It's been great chatting with you.